All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 2 all afternoon. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. We are buzzing at Royal Montreal. What a difference in vibes on a Friday compared to a Thursday. The international team is chugging. Mike Weir is peacocking all over the course, and he deserves to be. Everyone's feeling good here in Quebec.
It all started at the hotel, and I think everyone followed along. Doogie got us the fact special, the coffee, and we were loving it. And you got to experience it today.
Yes.
The espresso shots, and the international team had it all.
I feel like Dan Campbell right now.
You know what I heard today? We talked about yesterday how disappointing it was. I heard some, Augusta roars.
Roaring around here.
It was like a totally different vibe. I don't know if people forgot the tournament started yesterday, but it was awesome walking in.
I'll be honest, leaving here at 7 o'clock yesterday, our attitude was...
Even we were down.
We were Lieutenant Dan. We had an attitude.
We
were pissed.
A positive attitude yesterday.
There were some comments in the truck on the way home. It's like, this could be 10 cob by tomorrow, and what are we doing here?
Which is a horrible thing to suggest.
Dude, everyone was miserable. Even the security people were like, see you guys.
I know. Everyone was like, just leave. No pleasantries.
They were waiting for us to get out of here, the last people on the property, and they're like, get the hell out of here.
Please leave.
Yeah.
Please. Because by the time we hit 7, there was literally no one here.
Ghost town.
They went out at 11:30 yesterday. Today they went out at 1:05. Again, the international team, Sung J.M. and Hideki Matsuyama laid a beating on Shoffley and Cantlay, 7-6. That is the largest margin of victory in the history of the President's Cup.
And massive that was the first match out, and they put a beat down on them. That is so huge. And it's another reason I want to say in a format like this, please throw your analytics in the garbage. Because guess what? They had an option to start with this format today or the format yesterday. But recent history and stats prove that they're better at the format yesterday.
Yeah.
So what? Forget about it. Get a feel and a vibe. And you talked about Connors.
Connors and Hughes are out there dominating.
Hughes created a vibe, and they're dominating. You got to get a feel for it, and I'm so happy for Weirzy. We saw him on the 10th tee yesterday, and I was depressed for the guy.
Yeah.
Asking people to get engaged.
Yes.
Today they're rocking. Everyone is rocking.
There he is. Look at Mike Weir. Look at him and Trevor Immelman. They are clapping like Trudeau at that hockey game.
Yes.
They are so happy right now.
Not that fast.
No, that's true.
But you used the one word. He's peacocking.
Yes.
And good on him, because it was... honestly, yesterday it was somber, and I felt bad for him.
We were having legacy conversations.
Yes, I actually asked it
about Mike Weir's legacy yesterday on the show.
I had to, though.
I know.
Wasn't that a fair question?
5-0.
He almost said, good question, Jamie.
You almost had 1 point in the bank there. You almost did. And listen, it was...
Well, if he gets pumped here, everyone's going to say Weirzy was the captain of that team that got pumped in Montreal.
You don't want to be associated with that on home soil. Again, all 5 matches were really close yesterday.
Yeah.
They could have spun the opposite way. And to their credit, the international team, I don't know what they got up to last night. I have a few ideas.
Wow.
I think they might have floored it last night.
So you think...
Party bus downtown.
400 meters from our hotel is exactly where they went.
Did they go out hard? Or was it Team USA that went out hard?
Whatever they did last night.
They did a 400-yard dash.
Maybe it was the opposite, where the Americans said, we're going to put our feet up here tonight.
And it cost him.
It
cost him. Let's get back on track.
It might have cost him last night. But listen, I don't know what happened. I don't know what the plans were. But the only thing you need to know is the international team is alive here. Right? They're alive, and they're cooking, and it is a beautiful day.
But, Hazy,
here
they can't get satisfied. They got to find some way. What's that? Henley and Scheffler versus Siwoo Kim.
and Ben On, I believe.
If they could somehow squeeze that out and get this to a tie.
They went 5-5. If it's 5-5 after
major advantage international tomorrow.
What a battle this is going to be going into the weekend. And, again, the crowds have shown up. Montreal's alive. The weather's beautiful. It's just a great scene here.
Even if it's 6-4, somebody's got to lead at some point.
Exactly.
To me, this is – This is
pendulum is swinging here. This is the
turnaround.
Cup final.
It
was 3-0 Florida yesterday, and now it feels like the Oilers have tied it up, and we're going into Game 7 through the weekend.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's just, what I talked to GD last night, Graham Dillette, and I was like, that was tough to watch, and he's like, that's basically 5-0 after the first period.
Yeah, it's tough.
It was tough, but you got to give them a ton of props for battling back. And the smoke show out in the first match is so key.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the exclamation point where it's not like just a win. It's like, we hammered you guys, and that's what they had to do.
Incredible. Yeah. Incredible theater out here. So it's been a great day. We've seen a lot of Canadians from, across the country. We had a guy come over from Winnipeg Guelph, right, where you were obviously a legend back in the day. Nick Suzuki
guys
was.
Here from Ottawa.
I met a couple from Halifax or just outside New Glasgow in Nova Scotia, and it's just there's a lot of people that are coming in now, I think, for the weekend.
But where are the people from Australia?
Coast.
Where are the people? Like you said yesterday, where is the...
I don't know if we're ever going to see that. I don't know if you're going to see people from South America flying up here, but they could be around.
Now,
Who knows?
Of course they're tooting around.
They're around. It's just, I don't know if we're necessarily huge, in Australia or, in Peru, and people are going to stop us and say we watch you every day.
Yeah.
But lots of buzz out here today. It's really, really been great. And we'll have a lot of coverage throughout the afternoon, tracking day 2 of the President's Cup. The Leafs with a win last night, so Craig Berube can get off the hot seat, right? We can all kind of relax now that the Leafs got themselves a win in the preseason.
It's this injury bug thing. Like, it's almost I don't know if you want guys to play.
Well, the Nylander Robertson play, it was a really fluky circumstance, and we can touch on it. You guys, I'm sure, have views on it. I like that they were precautious. Willie got up and said, I'm out of here.
Check, please.
And I think they said to Willie, well, you're done now. Like, you're not going back out there. And what I really appreciate, and I understand it's different coaches, different styles. Everyone approaches it differently. Sheldon Keefe, throughout his time here, when asked about the status of a player, said the same thing every time. Haven't seen him, haven't talked to the trainer,
reevaluate,
which is completely bogus because obviously the first thing he's asking is how are the players. Craig Berube just comes out and tells you immediately, no, he's fine. Yeah, he's 100% fine. Like, don't worry about it. I love that Berube, he doesn't seem preoccupied with the way the quote-unquote Leafs operate. Like, we don't give information out. Yeah. We don't do this. We don't do that. Where it's a scenario here where it's like, this is the way we're going to go.
By the way, it's not that hard to say that. Just he's going to be fine. He's okay. He'll be back soon.
Now,
but the play itself, it was a fluke play. I have seen guys do that where they push the guy and people are like, people are like, why would he do that in the exhibition season? He's just trying to be a veteran-type NHL guy and say, get your ass back there and I'll give you a little shove. I've never once seen a guy fall down like that.
Well, I haven't either, but have you ever seen it actually work? Like, I don't know.
I have had that done. I have had that done.
Someone's pushed you, and you've been like, "Thank God, that's what finished my back
on
check."
a breakaway where a guy will push the D, and the D can catch up to him.
And you get 3 feet of stride, and you catch a guy. That works. That actually works. It's just a fluke play where that happens, and you fall. I've never seen a guy fall down with that.
And it happened to be when someone was turning up
ice. It's a fluke accident. For people to say he's stupid for attempting that, I completely disagree.
The other angle was that you saw people going, he was trying to draw a penalty. Somebody tapped him, and he threw himself.
Right, Willie thought he was being pushed by a hat.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't know how Jamie fell that easily. Like, he got a push on the rear end, and it's like
just off balance, I guess. I don't know. But you know what? Precautionary. Craig Berube comes out. To your comment about Craig Berube and the way how straight he is, I feel like a guy's arm could be falling off. He'd be like, you'll be fine for next game. Like, that's just how he runs his ship.
And
right?
I like that attitude. I like, listen, be precautious. It's the preseason, but also you got to get to your guys and say, we're fighting through injury. Like, you got to be careful. There's a union and everything. Exactly. I mean, we're being facetious to an extent, but it is an attitude. Like, we're going to battle. We're going to fight. We're going to be okay. We're not going to show weakness at any point. And that's kind of the Craig Berube way of going about it.
Yeah.
We've seen that push so many times. It was strange. It was awkward. It was a really bad result. In the end, it doesn't matter because Willie's fine. He's on the ice today. Like, literally, he's fine. He's moved on. But it kind of hung over Robertson a little bit. Yet the goal he scored last night is him in a nutshell. That's what he can do at an elite level, and it is a skill set that not many players in the league have.
Yep.
He is tenacious on pucks. He's quick. The way he darts in, makes a play and gets it off quick. That's a goal scorer's goal. Like, that's what that was. I'm going to read the play. I'm going to strip you of the puck, and I'm going to snap one home. And that's valuable. And I thought he played well last night. Like, I thought he he's shown
well
well throughout camp.
Yeah.
The thing
and
with
they
him
got to figure out
is-
what they're going to do here.
And the thing that he needs to figure out is you watch that goal, and it's like that. You just described it. Good stuff. Like darts in and out, strip the puck, scores the goal, good release, good shot. But it's like, what does he do on a consistent basis? Because that's what the coach wants. He doesn't want to have to throw him out there and say, this guy might score a goal, but then I can't play him in tight situations. Like, what is he going to do on a regular basis where the coach is like, I want you out there doing that? What is it?
Yeah.
That's what I don't really know.
Complete player where you're not worried if he's going in on a loose puck battle. You're like, that guy actually has a 50% chance of winning it.
Yeah.
Where I think in the last couple of years, though, he goes in, a lot of us feel like, I don't think he's going to win that battle consistently.
Yeah, and is he going to try those junior moves? I think he had a play last night where it was like a spin around, toe drag, and somebody just dumped him on the ground, and it was like that is a junior hockey.
That's what it was.
It was a junior hockey play, and it's like, are you going to go out there and do that? It just doesn't work out there.
He's not going to be 6'3", 210 overnight. Like, this is who he is.
But you know what, though?
Right? Like, he's not going to change his body type.
You're not going to, but you can change the way you play with the consistency of what he's talking about, the checking, the details. Let's just put a number on him. 18 goals this year he gets. If he gets 20, let's round up to 20, okay? What are you going to do if you score 20 goals in a season? What are you going to do for the another 60 games? You can't be a liability. You can't get stripped of pucks. Yes, you can be creative, but you can't. You have to bring something else to the table that you're trusted, that the coach goes, I got to put this guy out here, or I trust to have him out in that situation.
To sum it up, to be a 15-goal scorer in this league, you can't be a one-trick pony because it's not enough.
Right, exactly.
Because the coach is going to say, he's going to get me 15, so I'm not going to worry about. That's not enough for the coach to say I'm not going to worry about the other stuff.
Well, and on top of that, if you're a 15-goal scorer, you're not on the first power play. You're not out late in games, 6-on-5 goalie pulled. You're not that guy.
You're not 4-on-4.
You're a 5-on-5 player.
You're a 5-on-5 player, generally speaking, and you have to find the role. And that's what they are evaluating. This happens in every market. It certainly happens in Toronto, where I know Leaf fans are looking at it saying, look at that goal. He's got to make it. Pacioretty didn't look great. Craig Berube and company are not looking at the 15 to 20 goals. They obviously value that.
Right.
But they value, if it's Pacioretty, his ability to defend. He can kill some penalties. He's got veteran savvy. Calle Jarnkrok is a guy that's people are kind of wondering, where's your future here? Could he be expendable? And maybe he will be. But when Jarnkrok is playing well, he's a guy that they can rely on in all three zones.
Yeah.
And that is a bigger part of the evaluation right now when you're talking about where we're at. We're not talking Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, Morgan, like those guys are in a different category. You're talking depth in your lineup. 5-on-5. Can you give me 8 5-on-5 minutes tonight that I can trust? That's what Craig Berube is wondering and asking right now. And that applies to Easton Cowan.
Yeah.
It applies to Pontus Holmberg. It applies to a number of these guys who are fighting for the few positions that appear to be available right now.
Cowan was more noticeable for me.
I thought he looked good last night.
Created some chances.
Yeah, but they got to make a call on him. And here, there's waivers involved. There's salary cap issue. The play may be we got to send you back because we can't handle losing someone to keep you.
Well, what do you really want to do on that left side? Do you want to have Pacioretty as the veteran guy, or do you want to have one of your own kids that you've drafted and developed, or one of this kids who's going to be a future stud for you? Who do you want taking that position? That's what you have to ask yourself. Does it really make sense for Max Pacioretty, a 35-year-old veteran guy, to play in that position?
But
it depends what you want.
Only if you believe that. I would say no if you believe Easton Cowan can be an everyday guy. If you don't, then Max Pacioretty's your guy, and you continue to develop Easton Cowan. Yes, he looked good last night. Montreal didn't have their A-team on. Keep that in mind. That was a glorified junior team they sent over.
That's what you get when you're at home.
But,
exactly.
Right, but Easton Cowan right now is a junior player that's trying to play in the National Hockey League. So do you give him another game against better quality of competition, or do you give him the Travis Green speech?
Well, possibly. And Greeny, in the sense, sent a lot of people packing today. So, I mean, he was being accurate when he said enjoy it because this is probably your last game.
Last game for
But
everybody.
the same thing we just said about Nick Robertson applies with Easton Cowan early in his career. He is not playing with Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews to start his career. It's not going to happen. So the question is, can he play on the third line 8 minutes 5-on-5? That's what they're asking. Like, can you play 8 to 10 minutes 5-on-5 with good players, not great, and possibly get caught up, in Edmonton, You ice the puck and McDavid comes over the board. Like, these are what they are thinking of.
Right, or Pasternak.
Yeah, or whoever it is. You're going to
right.
get out there, and it's like, are you capable of handling that? And I don't have that answer on Cowan. I'm not sure the Leafs do. I don't think any team could have an answer on that with a 19-year-old kid. The question is, do you have belief by the end of the year he can get there and do it better? Because that's another element to this Maple Leaf conversation. They don't care as much about October, November, December. It's who are you by the end of the year, and can you help us actually win in the playoffs?
Right.
That's an element of this too. Because if you're keeping him and then he's going to be playing for you.
Right.
Right? Like, presumably, maybe they keep him until Christmas, send him to the World Juniors, and then back to London. That could happen.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, you're going to have to lose somebody. Nick Robertson's got to go on waivers. Pacioretty's not sticking around to, be a 13th
That's what you should
something.
do as a coach. Put the kids on the ice in a defensive zone and then get one of your own players to put a McDavid jersey on and change over the boards in an offensive face-off to see what it makes you feel like.
What do you got?
How do I feel right now with that McDavid jersey on one of my, like a fake McDavid?
What do you got?
What does it make me feel like?
Now, that being said, there are guys who are 10-year vets when that guy climbs over the board.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Chris Tanev is well aware of McDavid. He does a good job of shutting him down, but he knows when 97's on the ice.
Yeah, I was referring more to the coach. Like, what would Berube think if, these guys are out there and some studs go over the boards? How uncomfortable am I right now?
Personally, and I have no intel on this, I would be shocked if Easton Cowan is here this season, just based on, I think, where his progression is, what we've seen out of the first 3 games. There's no doubt he's going to be a really nice player. I just, right now where this team is at, it comes back to what you said, Brian. Who has to go?
Yes.
Now, it's easy to go to Pacioretty, not work it out, but I think they want to give Pacioretty an extended look to get his game back in order or see if his game can get back in order. If they had the flexibility where he didn't have waivers and they could put him in the A, I would love a rule where – now, I know that would be against junior rules of sending a guy back.
You're talking Cowan go to the American League.
It would be nice for him to get some games. We do see European 19-year-olds play in the AHL. Because if you believe Cowan is, kind of reach the top of the hill at the junior level, there's no in-between. The in-between is the AHL.
Right, exactly.
But he doesn't.
Not an option
he's
for
not
him.
fit for that. So
yeah, they got to figure it out.
But they got some time a little bit more here. Another week.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to rush it, and I'm sure they'll take it up until the last second with him. Let him be around the team. Let him take in every possible experience he can. And again, it's a preseason, but I thought Mitch Marner looked great last night. I think again to be expected, but. I am curious where this year goes for him. Like, I always come back to Marner because of the conversation throughout the summer, the contracts, where things are at in terms of his relationship with the media, the fan base, etc.
Yeah.
He looks like he's prepared to do some damage. Again, that Habs team isn't – they're not a great team, and it's at home, but he was dancing last night.
Yeah, he looked good. JT leaves. That's a little concerning.
I guess it was leg stiffness or something. I'm not sure what to make of that, but – listen, they're not a young team.
Well, that's
another thing. They're not a young team, the Maple Leafs.
Anybody who walks out the door or doesn't finish a game or you're like concerned, it always is concerning. That's just, that looks like a Charlie horse to me, a little stinger from Pizzetta.
They were trying to kind of get at him a little bit as the game went on.
Yeah, I mean, that didn't feel good, I'll tell you that.
No,
just an update on the course that the ass beating is like they are smoking guys.
Yes.
Taylor Pendrith and Adam Scott just dummied Morikawa.
And Thagala 5 and 4. So now the international team have 2 in the bank, and Bezuidenhout and Day are 3 up. They're on 13, and Connors and Hughes are 5 up, and they're on 13. So they could close right here. Like you could have a 7 and 6, 5 and 4,
awesome,
like 6 and 5, because that is a huge message. It's one thing to come out and grind and you win one up, and listen, it's all equal in the end in terms of points.
And if they got 2 points today, it would have been grinding.
Yes,
that
would have been
to
equal.
Just say we tried to save
you didn't quit. You battled.
Yeah.
Now it's 5-2, and we're probably within an hour of it being 5-4. And even the last match, which is Scheffler and Henley up against Kim and On, they're tied, and they're just starting the back.
Yeah.
Like, that could flip. If it goes 5-0, 5-0, that is just a crazy turn of events.
With advantage international team with the mojo.
Now you're rolling into the weekend, and now you got yourself something cooking
and
here.
Whoever did what they did last night either continues it or knocks it off.
That's a great question.
It
Do
is
you go right back?
Quick stroll.
Do you go right back to wherever you got that slump buster going last night?
Yeah.
I don't know. Or do the Americans go to bed at 9 p.m. tonight?
I think you look at
That's the
whoever you
question.
played with and you just say, ditto,
Double
or going
down.
again.
Double down and
Let's
have
kick our
yourself
feet
a
up
night.
and relax.
Yes, as you should. As you should. All right, we got Rex Hoggard coming up at the Golf Channel and NBC. Rex's take on the turn of events today. We're hoping Scotty Vail will join us, our good buddy Scott, who's, of course, on the bag of Keegan Bradley. Keegan not
Understandable
playing
if he doesn't come by today.
It may be a little bit of a testy one because he's in a bind because he's a Canadian representing the American team.
Yeah.
You know, he's obviously on the bag for Keegan Bradley, but we're hoping Scotty will join us. Our boy Graham Dillette coming up. Mike Johnson on what's going on around the National Hockey League. And the Jays are about to kick off their final series of the weekend. There's a lot going on in baseball in terms of like playoff hunts, in terms of some statistical numbers. Vladdy, I think, is a few hits away from 200 on the year. That would be the 6th Blue Jay ever to do that.
How about the A.J. Hinch effect in Detroit?
They
Dude,
were
why did the
sellers
Jays
at the
not
trade
go
deadline.
after A.J. Hinch?
Yeah.
This is the question, right? And here's what I was thinking about that today, that the Jays are going to look at that and say, that can be us next year if the Tigers took off in the second half because they were selling pieces. They were hovering around 500, below 500, thinking we're out of it. They are absolutely on fire since the trade deadline. They're at home against the White Sox this weekend.
Oh, my God.
And the White Sox have won 3 in a row. Ever since they got to 120 losses, they're like, screw it, man. We got to get going here.
They're not beating Detroit.
There's no way they're sweeping Detroit in Detroit.
No.
But the Twins are in big trouble. It feels like the Tigers are going to get in. You have the Mets and the Braves got rained out 2 games in Atlanta, so they might have to play a doubleheader on Monday to see who makes the playoffs.
That's theater.
Which is
imagine
electric.
161 games. You got to play one game
you have to play 2 of them. That's the crazy thing. Like they're all playing this weekend clearly, and the Mets are in Milwaukee. They're going to have to fly down to Atlanta to play those 2 games. And the D-backs are in the hunt. It's going to be a big weekend in Major League Baseball. So more on that throughout the afternoon. Al's brother will be on.
Oh,
Al's
my
brother,
Lord.
and I
He
have
is.
some things to say to Al's brother. And I'm going to say them publicly. Unlike him, I'm not going to be a weasel and text them indirectly to somebody.
There's big trouble.
Because he has something coming. Because I was pushing the Giants yesterday. And he was adamant on the Cowboys before I had the intel that he had been sewering me behind my back.
I don't believe it. You went against your own morals because you
I
always
said
for
it.
years have been saying to me, divisional game at home. You never do that.
I said it 20
and you
times.
did it.
I did it, and I have to own that gutless behavior myself. But on the road, short week, divisional, 5.5 was too much. That said, Aubrey has been literally automatic, and he missed a 51-yard field goal that would have covered the number at the end of the game. And it wasn't much of a ball game. Why Daniel Jones was throwing the ball 40 times is beyond me, but that's what was happening last night.
I think Daniel Jones is starting to cook.
Oh, really? Well, maybe
Danny Dimes.
Mix in a throw into the end zone would have been nice last night for Danny Dimes. But he threw the ball a lot. None of it was necessarily successful. But the Cowboys with a win, a big one, didn't cover the number. The amount of flags being thrown throughout that game has Al Michaels losing his mind. I got some audio we'll play later this hour on Al Michaels, who is one of the very few broadcasters in sports who can
involved.
do anything he wants.
Yeah, with gambling, all of it.
He can take shots at the league, the refs.
He just does whatever he wants.
He Gary Thorns it all the time, and he had a Gary Thorne moment multiple times in the first half last night. So more on that still to come. We're live at Royal Montreal. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, we are live at Royal Montreal, the President's Cup, and what a turn of events. We were here yesterday, and it was a depressing afternoon.
Oh,
Let's call it what it was.
terrible.
It was a depressing afternoon for the international team, for everyone involved. 5-0 Americans after yesterday. But as of today, everything is starting to swing. The pendulum has swung already. You've got a 7-6 for the international team, a 5-4 for the international team. 2 of the other 3 matches that remain out there, Internationals 2 up, 5 up, and the last one's tied. So we could have a complete swing, 5-0 to 5-5 in 24 hours. Here's Rex Hoggard of the Golf Channel on NBC. Rex, great to see you, man. We saw you in Hamilton. It's good to see you in Montreal.
Thanks for having me back. This is fun.
Absolutely. It is now. Can you believe what's happening here after yesterday?
I can't. We went back and forth last night on Live From about this, and I think a colleague of mine actually said it's over, and I cautioned a little bit there. Like, there is math involved here. We still had 25 points to play for, but when you look at what happens when they go down 5-0. They have never won after going down 5-0. As a matter of fact, they've gotten blown out by 8 points and 11 points, respectively. When you look at the fact that the Internationals' record in alternate shot, which is what they're playing today, is horrible. They've been outscored by 33 points. The last time they won this session was 05, nearly 2 decades ago. The math didn't add up, but you have to give Mike Weir credit. He had a plan and he stuck with it.
Are you aware of some kind of big speech that somebody gave? Like, was there a kind of Ben Crenshaw moment where it's like, I believe in these guys. Was there anything you heard of, Rex?
I heard on the bus coming over this morning, Mac Hughes had something to say. And look, he can be outspoken. And I think earlier this week on Live From, we called him the international team's dog. And for those of us who don't for those of you who don't follow football in the United States, that's a very, very good thing. I just think he had that fight in him. I was actually a little surprised to see him sat yesterday. I felt like he could have been good.
So was Brian, yeah.
I was pushing hard for Mac yesterday,
yeah, he was.
man.
And the idea is, we were just having this conversation. I think Mike probably knew he needed him for the next 4 matches. So you have to rest a guy somehow, some way. So I get that side of it, but, man, he came out with so much fight today.
Yeah, he did.
You're talking about Mike Weir. Yesterday, when they're down 5-0, was there a lot of questionings of, some of the things that he had done here in the first round?
I mean, it's inevitable when you're a captain, and I'll give both captains credit. They clearly had a plan going into yesterday. But to stick to your plan, when the great Mike Tyson line, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. He got punched in the face, and you started questioning today's pairings, and then it plays out the way it is right now.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Again, I guess it's officially 5-2, but we've got a couple of matches that look like they're going to be over real soon, which means you're probably looking at 5-4, and we'll see what happens with that last match. As for the flip side of it, the Americans, or I guess the international team, was licking their wounds and trying to find a way to hype themselves up. Do you get the impression that the Americans left here thinking this is a breeze, it's over, we're going to spank these guys? And did that attitude and that approach possibly bite them today?
I think the idea of overconfidence was very, very real. And I say that only because about
It would be hard not to be, Rex.
When you sweep, and all the stats that I just threw at you, it was a bit of an alphabet soup. But we were on the range last night at 9 o'clock, so it was dark. The international team had already left, and there was a party going on inside the U.S. locker room. It was very loud. It was very boisterous. And the idea is, it was hard not to think to yourself, this is over. But I'm sure coming out of today, they will have a lot of heart-to-heart talks. But to your point about a motivational speech, I think the message from Mike Weir was, you don't have to be Superman. A 3-2 day, just get one back. Let's claw it back. We don't have to do it in one day. And now look what they've done.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And, I mean, there's Mackenzie Hughes and Corey Connors speaking, to the media, to NBC and the Golf Channel right now. And, the Canadiens, they're all going. Pender's already in with a point. You got Connors and Mac that have obviously won. I mean, that's why they're speaking. So it's 5-3 now. I mean, the Canadiens, a couple years ago, it was ugly for the Canadiens down at Quail Hollow. The idea of them getting on the board is pretty substantial, too.
And it's huge for this crowd.
Yes.
Mike was clear. This had to be the 12th man. They had to be the loud part. This had to be a home game for the international team. And I think yesterday it was quiet. That was largely because of the play on the field. And today I walked the front nine with one of the matches. It was boisterous.
Great. It was a great vibe out here
That
today.
was a crazy vibe yesterday, though. Like, we showed up, and before we got on the air, it was like, man, this... Yeah, it was so weird, and now there was a DJ on the first tee. I'm like, where was the DJ yesterday?
I know.
Did he forget to show up? It was completely
home.
different. The whole thing, everything was different today.
It was electric. And I want to join a conversation you guys had earlier this week, and it's about truth in sizing. I'm with you. When it says medium, it better be a medium. This is not a medium as I get
Rexy, welcome to the medium club.
Look at you two, just a couple of mediums.
No, I love that conversation. I wanted to just pipe in on
Well, we appreciate that because the road to medium starts right here in Montreal.
That's right.
And it's a beautiful thing because this guy, I witnessed a conversation earlier, Rex. I can't tell you how ridiculous this thing was. There was a dietitian standing here.
Oh, no.
A professional dietitian, and he was telling her
He was lecturing
how you're
her.
supposed to eat.
I was like, is this guy for real?
This guy's like, no,
I-
that's not a smart plan.
Yeah.
She's like, well, I only have a PhD in this, but please tell me more about how I'm supposed to
No,
operate.
you just got to drink water. I heard him say that. If you're hungry, drink water. I was like, no, that's
She didn't get a word in. This guy was
Once
telling-
again, you have totally butchered a story. He came up and he said he was a bit of a pig at night eating chips and stuff. And I said, well, you can't really do that. And his wife said, yeah, I'm a dietitian. And I've tried to tell him that. That's all I said. You're totally blowing the story way out of proportion.
I'm just saying, the road to medium, and now it's to a dietitian. I mean, we're We're changing
something
here.
else.
Montreal,
Rexy, I go to Frederica a lot, so if you're in the pro shop there and you see a medium golf shirt, ship a couple up to
Coming your way. It's coming your way.
All right.
They know what sizing's about. This is a medium. It
That's
fits.
That's it,
accurately
man.
a medium.
Put
Okay.
some stuff aside for December. I'll be
got it.
down there in December.
That's good to know. Rex Hoggard with us of the Golf Channel. So, what does this mean for the weekend, in your opinion? How do we change the handicap system in terms of projecting what's going to happen the rest of the way?
If we were sitting here yesterday and I told you, well, it's just going to be a half-point difference. That's what it looks like it's going to be right now. Going into the weekend, you probably would have rolled your eyes.
Yep.
There is no way that's possible. It's only going to give the international side momentum. And I keep going back to the idea this should not be any different than the Ryder Cup. If you look at last year's differential when it came to the European team and the American team, it's almost the exact same when it comes to the world ranking as what we have this week with the American team and the internationals. They had to find a spark. And I'll give Ernie Els just a monsoon of credit. He started this with the shield and the idea we're going to play under one flag. It's taken a couple years, but you're starting to see the seeds of it.
How hard is it not to overthink? This session is basically all going to be wrapped up, and it might be a half-point differential. How hard is it not to overthink the session tomorrow that you got clubbed in the first time around? Like, to think, how do I make it better? What pairings and how do I switch it up? Like, how hard is it to overthink that?
We sat last night and tried to figure out why did Tom Kim and Minwoo Lee sit today.
Yeah.
They are the most boisterous, outspoken, fist-pumping. They needed to be on the golf course today. It's a really interesting conversation. But again, in Mike's mind, he clearly had a plan. And I would expect to bring those two out often and early, along with the Canadiens. I've been a little surprised. He has put them in the third, fourth, and fifth matches.
Yep.
But in saying that, Rex, I was talking to the producer before the show. They're great players and everything, but nobody got points. They got destroyed. So why is it nobody deserves to be so important to have to be out on that golf course after getting crushed like that?
Agreed, but you're going back to the 12th man. You've got to get that crowd behind you. This is I started covering this event in 2000. This is what I would consider the only true home game for the internationals. Australia's fun, but the Australians want to see Tiger and Phil just as much as they want to see the internationals play.
Right.
Yep.
This is a true home game. You needed to get the crowd behind them.
Yep.
So what does the U.S. group do to kind of revamp or kind of reset for tomorrow?
I think Jim Furyk's going to put a lot on what happened in 2018 at the Ryder Cup. And look, again, the Americans got punched in the mouth the first 2 days, and they came back and made a game of it on the weekend. I think he's going to have to find something deep down. He's got some weapons. Let's face it.
Yeah.
Scotty Scheffler
Yep.
is an alpha in that room. Xander Schauffele is the team leader for all the right reasons.
Put them together.
And the
That
idea
would be
that they got
wild.
ran over today, Hideki Matsuyama had 8 birdies. Like that's going to happen. You need to put that out of your mind. He still has some dogs on his side as well. And my guess is he has a game plan. He's going to stick to his as well.
Well, what's interesting about that is, like, he didn't play Schauffele with Cantlay yesterday, and those two they've kind of morphed into the new Thomas and Spieth. And yesterday goes so well. Clearly, he was like, put them together, put them out first. These guys are going to, I don't know, dominate might be strong, but I'm sure Furyk thought that's my play. If I'm up 5-0, I put those two out first the next day, lights out, and it was the complete opposite. 7 and 6 is a massive beatdown for two players of that caliber. Cantlay was exceptional yesterday, and Schauffele is the number 2 ranked player in the world.
They were 2 under on an alternate shot. That's not a bad deal. When you run into someone who's going to go 8 under, you're going to get run over. That happens. I will say those first 2 pairings today for both sides, the internationals and the U.S. team, they were about as strong as they get.
Yeah.
I would expect the same thing tomorrow. I think it was inspired to somehow put Russell Henley in that group yesterday with Scotty Scheffler. I would not have seen it. Apparently Jim Furyk saw something in the numbers, and it turned out well. I don't expect to see them in the first group tomorrow.
Okay.
You ever want to, even for these guys, like if you ever want to find out what you got inside, like a lot of the guys are off the golf course. They're following you. Your captains are with you. Like Siwoo Kim just hit a tee shot on the 14th hole in the par 3. That was incredible. Like everyone is literally watching you right now, and that's where you probably see if you got the stones to do this stuff.
When I went out this morning, I wanted to walk with the Max Homa group because I think Max, coming into this week, was the only one I was going to question Jim Furyk. Only because the one thing you have to do well on this golf course, drive the ball, he has not
And
done
he was
well.
a pick, correct?
He was a pick, and I think, again, this goes back to 2018 and some of the mistakes that I feel like Jim Furyk made going into that event. I feel like Homa was a mistake. To your point, Furyk was with him every step of the way today on purpose.
Yep. Well, listen, it's going to be quite the development over the next hour or so, because as you look at it, the international side, they've got 3 points already in the bag. I believe Homa and Harmon are still out there, but Day and Bezuidenhout have been in the lead basically all day, and Scheffler, Henley up against Kim and On. They're battling down the stretch as well. What a different tone on live from tonight. man, it'll be a different vibe on that show tonight, won't it?
It really will be. And look, yesterday we had whatever happened between Tom Kim and Scotty Scheffler. I mean, we're going to continue to talk about that, and that added some personality, which this event really needs. So that's part of it. But you also need parity. We've talked about this for so long. I was so aggravated coming to the golf course this morning because this is the third time in the last 4 matches we have talked about the possibility of the U.S. team closing out the internationals on Saturday.
Right.
It's not going to happen. I never think it's going to happen. But the math says it can happen. I think everybody is tired of having that conversation. No one more
I thought it was going to happen yesterday.
There were
no one more
thoughts.
so than Adam Scott. Like, honestly, I've had so many conversations with Adam about this, and I keep expecting him to get aggravated and him to get tired of being in this situation. He hasn't yet, and after a day like today, I see why.
Yeah, he was jacked up when they closed their matchup, man, naturally, as you would expect. He is Rex Hoggard of the Golf Channel and NBC. Great seeing you as always, Rex. Thanks for doing this, man, and enjoy the rest of your time here in Montreal.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
There it is. Rex Hoggard joining us here. Coverage of the President's Cup on OverDrive brought to you by Subaru Canada. Enjoy fall to the fullest with symmetrical full-time all-wheel drive. Visit your local Subaru dealer to book a test drive today. We're live at Royal Montreal throughout the afternoon. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Mike Johnson in about 20 minutes on the Leaf game last night. Some other stories around the NHL, including Drew Doughty, fracturing his ankle. He's out month to month.
Brutal, man. This might create some talk of let's have 3 exhibition games and be done with this nonsense.
Yeah, and I mean, it sucks for Doughty because he's not a young guy anymore either.
No.
To recover from that kind of injury, now you're not going to get a full camp. You got to jump on a moving train. He had a really good year last year.
Yeah.
Like, really good. I think he's still hovering around the idea of playing for Canada at the Four Nations, maybe next year at the Olympics. That's what I was thinking. Like, this probably takes him out of that conversation altogether.
Well, yeah, the Four Nations, if it's a couple months recovery, or more, yeah, the Four Nations is
He's not going to get back into that.
I was watching this game live the other night, and I was like, God, that right away on the replay, you're like, that's a broken ankle.
Big trouble.
And you wonder if pins have to go in, all of that type of stuff, because they said month to month. That's now Jim Hiller came out in his media today and said they will see him again this year. He's not done for the season. But it wasn't optimistic like, hey, this guy's out 2 months and let's move on. Like month to month sounds like, hey, we'll see you in March.
Yes, exactly. Like, it's an extended period of recovery, and then you got to get back up into speed. And I mean, again, trying to stay in shape when it's a lower body injury, you can't really do it.
Yeah,
it's another thing. Like, can you be on the bike? Can you be running? Can you do all that kind of stuff? It's probably not available to him for quite some time.
Yeah.
So that is tough news for Drew Doughty. Johnny coming up in a little bit. Hopefully, Scotty Vail will join us. The Vince Carter in town today. And, the Raptors made it official, and, I think they're doing a good job. Here's my stance, and I've made my opinion very clear. I'm not going to continue to reiterate how I feel about them retiring Vince's number.
It's a goofy vibe, I'm not going to lie to you.
I don't like it. I don't think it should have happened. I do think there's a real generational divide. I feel old for the first time talking about, local topics, because I really think if you're 25 and weren't there when he was here and when he wanted out and the way he went out, you look at it differently. And if you went through it like I did in the 90s when they arrived and how tough it was and all the guys that wanted to leave and Stoudemire and T-Mac, and then he did it, and then Bosch left when he could.
Does it open, was it wrong to say a wound? Would it open a wound?
Well, it was 20 years ago. It does, I think, for a lot of Raptor fans who just remember the way it ended, where the Raptors are trying to promote the way it started, which is fine. But I will say, with what they're doing with the revitalization of that court, they're spreading his jersey around the city today. You have to do that. Good for them, because they've made. If you're going to make the decision to do it, you can't make it quiet and just try to slide it up into the Raptors and say, "Hey, Vince is retired."
Right.
You've made the decision. You're going to honor him. You're going to honor his jersey. You're going to retire his jersey. You've got to do it large.
Yeah.
You got to commit to it. Whether it doesn't matter anyone's opinion on whether or not they should have done it. They are doing it, and if you're going to do it, make sure it looks like $1 million.
Right.
And I think they started with that today. There's a charitable angle to it. Again, spreading his jersey around the city. I think you have to do that. A bunch of people were sending it to me today. What do you make of this? What do you think? they made the decision to do it. You got to do it large.
Well,
you've got to honor the guy now. Like, it's got to be a really big.
The tears were.
Vince is getting emotional, and he'll get emotional in Brooklyn, I'm sure. I mean, the guy's getting 2 jersey retirements in like a month and a half.
It's really a shiny toy or a distraction as to how poorly the Raptors, right? Like, that's, the Vince thing will be celebrated. It'll be great, but the team isn't very good.
Well, that's what this is. Look over here.
Exactly.
Yeah, a lot of it is a distraction. It's their 30th anniversary, and they've been pretty bad for a couple of years. I don't think they're going to be very good for a couple more. And they're trying to revitalize the fan base. They got more injuries. Their first-round pick, he was announced as an injured player today. They've got some injuries coming into camp.
Yeah.
They're not going to be, again, a great team. I think what they're hoping to do is separate the actual 82-game season from the celebration of their history. But, Kyle's still playing. Kyle's still on a 1-year deal. He's still playing, so he's not in a position to retire his number yet. And, Kawhi Leonard's still playing. And Kawhi's not coming up. You know what I mean? That's not going to happen, because if you're going to – and the truth is, if you've been around for 30 years, you can't just focus on 2019 every single game all year.
Right.
You can't just celebrate the championship season. You got to try to celebrate the whole thing. And I guess that's going to start with Vince Carter, which I think I don't think that's the right call. I think a lot of fans would prefer to avoid that. Give them a night or two, throw them on some tickets, bring them out, whatever. Yeah. But this is going to be basically the driving force of their marketing campaign this year.
Whole ball of wax. It's all in Vince's bucket. And
Vince is getting it all.
Isn't there an argument, though? Did he help put basketball on the map?
That's always the matter. And again, a lot of this is revisionist history. The amount of people that are trying to pretend as if the Raptors would have left town if not for Vince Carter is so ignorant and so stupid.
Right.
And just completely inaccurate. And a lot of it is, Vancouver left, and the only reason they stayed is because of Vince. That is completely inaccurate.
Right.
Toronto is a massive market. There was a huge ownership. They had built the building before he got here. Yeah. They were building Air Canada Centre for the basketball team. The Leafs were not involved in that building until later. It was never going to happen. If they never made that trade, Anton Jameson for Vince Carter on draft night, if Jameson was a Raptor, they'd still be the Raptors today. Nothing would have changed because of Vince Carter. But was he inspiring and fun to watch, and were young kids loving it? Absolutely. Of course. And I was right at the front of the line. I loved watching him play.
Yeah, there was a lot of people throughout Canada that loved it.
Of course.
Who was that absolute disaster player in Vancouver?
Bryant Reeves is who you're talking about.
Big country.
Big country. That was his name. Oh, my God.
That was a tough draft pick. And that's the thing. When you get it right and when you get it wrong. I mean, that's an example of it. You take him on a reach, Bryant Reeves, and it turns into what it turned into. That was a mess.
I had no idea what it – I just knew big country.
Big country. He had the stash and the mullet going. And
he was awful, wasn't he?
Well, as a pro he was. I mean, as a collegiate player he was very good. But it was a poor decision.
It's a tough pick.
Listen, a lot of draft picks, I was reading about it today. It was I want to say it was the head coach of the Vikings talking about how young quarterbacks coming into the league, that he said something along the lines of franchises fail young quarterbacks long before young quarterbacks fail franchises.
Right.
And I think effectively
there's probably a good combination involved in that.
It can be a combination of both. But I think what the argument he's trying to make is – a lot of it is the luck of the draw where you get drafted to. Sure, there are special players, like special players that go somewhere and they change everything because of who they are and what they represent. But if you're not one of those players, like at 18 or 19 or 20, 21, a lot of it is I was in the right system. I had a good team around me. I had a good coach. I had a good foundation. And that allows you to grow.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. It's the luck of the draw where you happen to get drafted.
Oof. I'm looking at this Bryant Reeves.
Can't get over it, eh?
That was like a big organizational swing move. It was that could have worked out. Who were some guys around him that went after him that probably turned into studs?
Well, I mean, you could look at that draft, and I'm sure you could find a bunch of them. But that was I wouldn't say that's the beginning of the end for Vancouver, but then they had a Steve Francis issue where Francis was getting drafted there, and he was
Stevie
not
franchise.
Having it. Yeah, he wasn't having it,
oh
and that was early into their existence where there were guys that were like, "I'm not going there." And when that happens,
that's
when that's your
curtains.
reputation.
That's
and
curtains.
the thing is, though,
Well, why was Vancouver getting that and not Toronto?
Well,
I know
Toronto
there was
was, though.
it was to some degree.
See, and that's the point when coming back to Vince, that yes, he put them on the map. He also ripped them off when he left. He ripped them off the map because he perpetuated the T-Mac stuff, the Stoudemire stuff. All these other guys were like, I don't want to be up here.
Right.
No ESPN. I got to go through customs. All this bogus stuff that was directed towards the Raptors. It still is because they're the only Canadian team.
Right.
You know, it's that's why what they did in 2019 was was so crazy.
Yeah.
Because they were in a bad place in the NBA for a while in terms of trying to attract players. Like, and even in 19, you look at Kawhi, he shows up, and then the second he wins a championship and leaves immediately. Like that.
Like you would think a
itself
championship would say, "Hey, I'm going to stick around for a couple years."
Generally speaking, guys are like, "Hey, I want to win. I'll stay where I just won."
We had the OJ chase on this show, weren't we?
When he was flying in for
yes,
negotiations.
we tracked his SUV right to the Hazelton Hotel.
Yes.
I think it was.
That should be a hazy B list. Is the top 5 chases for Toronto, or plane chases. There's Kawhi. There was Ohtani that actually never even happened. Ohtani wasn't even in the air.
Babcock's plane from Detroit.
Babcock's plane was one.
My God,
Trying to think of others.
There's a top 5 for sure.
I'll come up with 5.
Toronto chases.
I'll come up with 5 chases that feature sporting figures and whether or not they're actually going to stay here.
Wow.
All right, hour 2 coming up. Mike Johnson will join us. Scotty Vale still to come. We've got picks for the rest of Week 4. More on the games last night. The Leaf game, the Cowboy win. And it is a turn of events here at the President's Cup, man. The international team is alive. They are alive. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.